Thank you. Thank you. Oh, this is awesome. First, I'd like to thank my coworkers. Beautiful. Thank you so much. You captured my heart with my dragonflies and my gardening, and you captured my heart. And you're not going to believe this, but I didn't know anything what anyone else was going to say, and I actually wrote some things down. And you're not going to believe how it ties in with what everyone else has said. I'll tell you a little more about the dragonfly. That's my first note. The dragonfly actually starts out as a grub, and then it climbs to the surface, and once it's in the warmth on the lily pad, it's transformed. The dragonfly is the fastest insect. It camouflages itself so that it can avoid its enemies. And it also, because of the positioning of its eyes, it has 360-degree vision. As you look around the room, you'll see a lot of the dragonflies. If you come to my house, you will see dragonflies in my house, in my garden. I'm always wearing a dragonfly. There are 2 on my skirt, and I have a tattoo on my ankle, just to be sure. For me, the dragonfly is a symbol of transformation. And there's many things that equates to in my life. But I want to talk about how it equates to my work life here. I've been with Carver County for 29 years. I initially started my connection with Carver County 30 years ago. And I started out as a volunteer. I started volunteering through a joint program with County Extension and Social Services Information Services through Terry Clay. That was a program she ran, and she works with the libraries now. And when I first started doing that, my husband said, well, why are you doing something for free? We have 3 kids at home, why are you volunteering? Well, it was an interest to me, and it was through Terry that I found out about a Case 8 opening in social services. And she said, you should apply. So I did. And 29 years later, I think Dale can agree that volunteering sometimes pays off. And I started out, like I said, as a case aide did some family visits with child protection, but primarily was dealing with the vulnerable adults, the mentally ill, and the chemically dependent. And at that point in time, I worked with Liz Thompson, and we wrote up some VA vulnerable adult protocols. And also that was at the time when Chemical Dependency Treatment Fund came about. Initially, now that's a lot of years ago, and initially we determined the financial eligibility for that in social services. So at that time our kids were little. They were 4, 6, and 9, and you've seen some, oh, that's a lovely picture. I was still a case 8, so that was in 1990. Now that's better. That was our 40th wedding anniversary. Anyway, our kids were 4, 6, and 9, and it was a good thing that I knew how to write policy, because when you have 3 boys at home, you need to know how to write procedures and policies and be willing to change the policy. Summers were the worst. They would get into so much trouble. So we had to design some rules. After there were water fights,
List the rules.
yeah, we changed the rules, and we rewrote them several times. And Mark will remember this one. We wrote a rule that the water fights could only happen outside. So what do creative little boys do? One little boy's in the house, the other one's outside. And so water fights are starting outside, but they go through the open window, through the screen, into the house. So we had to rewrite the rule. Now there were no more water fights. And another rule, because at that point in time, that was pre-cell phone. Whoop. Pre-cell phone, right on cue. Thank you. And so we had to set up a rule. Kids, you can only call mom between 12 and 1, and only then if it's an emergency. And it's an emergency if it's on this list. Otherwise, it's not an emergency. Our son Phil was 4 when I started here, and people would ask me for the latest Phil story, because there always was one. And one I remember was, I came back from lunch one day, and they said, oh good, you're here. Your husband's trying to reach you. And again, pre-cell phones. And this was when Clerical wrote little memos, and I had a stack of memos. He's been trying to reach you. And then they said, oh, the last one says it's okay, the police are here now. in kindergarten at that time. He'd gotten off the bus at the daycare provider. By the way, Alan Herman, who works with SmartLink and the transportation coordinator, they were our daycare provider. And he got off at the end of the driveway, and they watched him get off the bus, but then he disappeared. He ran 2 miles through the road ditch to the little girl's house down the road. And it took that long to follow him back. But he was fine. He knew where he was. He was fine. And when I started here in 1987, social services was one level. The upstairs wasn't done yet. Elevator was there, didn't function. There's a big gate across the stairs. And Phil was in one day and kept pushing the elevator button. I said, it's not going to go anywhere. And then he wanted to climb up the stairs, and I said, there's nothing up there. Well, why are there stairs then? I said, well, that's for future development. He heard future, and so he says, I want to see the future now. Well, 30 years later, come back and you'll see everything is revising again. And Noah was the middle child, and he kind of went along with each other, his older and his younger brother, and instigated plenty on his own. So I'm not going to leave him out of the mix either. Actually, the one picture where the 3 boys are like sitting on a bench, Phil's got that frown on his face. That's because the photo before that, Noah had knocked him off the bench. And he didn't want to get back up there and take another picture. Pre-digital, I didn't know how many shots I needed to take to get one for the Christmas card. The other thing that's changed a lot are, obviously our kids are grown, and the tools that we have to do our job with have changed. I started pre-Maxis, into financial, and some of the long-term workers know when we had to handwrite every form, and we had no, computers. No, we didn't have computers. So you had to dictate all your case notes, and you had your calculator, all those lovely tools. Now everything is computerized, no lateral files, everything's paperless, and it's all awesome when the computer works. Yeah. And doesn't get infected. So, and that all changes, and the thing that's remained the same through all of this are the clients. And the clients are the constant focus. Clients, consumers, customers, whatever the current PC word is, they are always our focus. They have shaped my life. I have been transformed by dealing with the elderly and disabled population my entire career in financial. And we impact them each day that we touch their lives. And I think sometimes we forget the impact we have on them. And they in turn have on us. And they bring things to our lives and expand our lives. That's how dealing with the mentally ill was one of the reasons, besides some personal experiences, that got me into NAMI in the first place. I'm now a NAMI trained facilitator, and we do that twice a month with others. And I intend to expand on that. There's many more NAMI programs that I can be involved with. I'm involved with the grief ministry. I see the grief with the families we deal with. When they call and tell you that their loved one passed away, what do I do now? So we see the grief. I'm involved in grief ministry also. I'm involved with the Gold Star family because of Noah. Noah's death has transformed our lives in so many ways. But there is joy in it, in the people that we've met through that. And so when people say, what are you going to do now? I'm going to keep doing what I do. Scrapbooking, beading, gardening, photography, but NAMI, grief ministry, Gold Star, family. Oh yeah, Mark's counting on his fingertips. So with that, I will, one thing we're going to do, and I've got some information up here. The first thing I'm going to do when I retire is the month of June will be devoted to working on something special that we do to honor Noah. We're going to do a 5K run, walk, and kids fun run out of Baylor Park. And in the afternoon, an awesome organization called Tribute to the Troops will arrive with 40 to 100 motorcycles out to Baylor Park. And they will be doing a special presentation and program to honor Noah. They do this to honor the fallen. And all proceeds go to the Children of the Fallen Scholarship Fund. So they're just an amazing group. And I would like to recognize my husband Dale, because some of you know him. He's been with me all through all of this. Well, mostly through this. And if you ask him what he's going to do when I retire, he's going to go fishing. And Mark's going with him. Our oldest son, Mark, is here, and his wife, Caitlin. And our son, Phil, can't be here today. And Noah's represented in the slides and over there. And then my mom is here, Beatrice, and my sister, Bonnie. Bonnie liked how the county works so well that she works for the county now too. She currently works over at First Street Center. And my sister Lori and her daughter Kylie arrived just a little bit ago. They're in the back of the room. And also, Mary's already spoken, and Michelle's back there. Michelle was one of the first people I worked with.
She saved my life.
I did. I saved her life. Seriously. She was going to electrocute herself. Accidentally. It was not a suicide intervention. So I started in April of '87 and moved to financial in April of '90. And I didn't think it would be a whole lot different. I was already writing policies and determining eligibility financially. And I made the mistake of mentioning something at some point about no pressure, no stress, and yeah. My lovely coworkers never let me forget it. So on the first anniversary of moving to financial, I bought a cake. And I had the words, no pressure, no stress, written on the cake. And I took a picture of it, and that's, anyone who came to my office saw the no pressure, no stress. I don't know, if you were here early, you would have seen they wrote no pressure, no stress on that cake for that reason. So what I've learned over the years, though, is there will always be stressors. There will always be pressure. It's how we allow that to transform our lives and impact our lives that makes the difference. And so I would like to eat those words one more time. I didn't know they were going to put those on there, but I brought a cake. So there's more cake. And when I went in, they said, "You want what written on that cake? And what's the story behind this?" It's a duplicate of the one I did 25 years ago that says no pressure, no stress. So, as I retire, I want to again thank my coworkers. Thank you all for being here, all the impacts you've had on my life, how you've transformed me into the person I am. And by the way, I did see a dragonfly outside of my window before I came over today.
Jen, can I say something?
Oh, yes, Mom.
This morning I was sitting in my living room, and what was on my deck door about a dragonfly about that big.
They're always
And
there.
I thought,
Yeah,
so I just had to
perfect.
say that.
Yeah, we all have dragon. That's awesome, Mom. And so I'm ready. I'm going to miss my coworkers, all of you in all the departments. I'm going to miss my clients, because the sense of fulfillment you get from helping someone else is huge. So I'm going to miss that. And I'm ready for the next transformation. I'm ready for the transformation of retirement. And please, 2 reminders, sign the guest book. And we are going to go to size afterwards. We'll be over there around 4:30. Anybody wants to stop in, we'll be in the back room. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, well, before we wrap up the program officially, I'm going to try out your line for the first time. No pressure or no stress on anybody, but if there's anyone who would like to say a few words to Jan, this would be a great opportunity for you to do that. Anyone? I know we have a shocking story in the back.
Oh, we got Dale in the front.
Oh, there, thanks, Dale.
Sure. When Jan and I were both working full-time, well, she still works full-time.
For one more day.
Yep. I worked 4 9s and 1 4. And then Jan was still working 5 days a week. So she was always saying, sure, it would be nice if I could have a 10-hour day, 4 days a week. Well, when she finally got there, she was just wore out. She was just a different person. You know? She'd sit down, she'd almost fall asleep right away.
I do know.
Yeah. So then on her day off, once in a while, well, I usually cook for her all the time. So when she comes home, all she has to do is sit down and eat. But on Fridays, sometimes she would make the meal, and then I would come in there and I'd pester her. And she would say, "Leave me alone." I says, "Why?" I says, I hardly ever see you. know. So, welcome back to the kitchen.